Duluth City Council met today to discuss ways to improve safety within the city's embattled skywalk system. The city hired a consulting firm last June to spend 6 months assessing the skywalk system and what changes could be made. Well, tonight they presented those findings. The report says 59% of the retail space connected by the skywalk is not being used, leaving nearly all of that space vacant. More than 65% of people responded on the survey that if there was enhanced safety in the skywalks, they would find the skywalks more appealing.
What you are fundamentally offering is great walkable and bikeable amenities that are close to each other. That is what you're selling. That is what you sell to office users. That's what you sell to residents. That's what you sell to tourists. That's what you sell to bring people in from a wide area around to downtown.
However, the firm says after researching large cities similar in size to Duluth, they suggested a more active ground-level downtown scene with farmers markets and plazas. Counselors then asked the firm how they can make those changes.
How did we decide what businesses would be there and how people would access those areas and so on? And what was the city's investment there? Because I think it would be good to think about what happened there as we move forward to looking downtown Duluth.
Council also addressed crime in the skywalk system, but did not come to any solutions about that. City leaders will review the presentation from the firm tonight and discuss more solutions for the future.